Hello everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting. Today I am working through By the Well for God's Growing in Truth devotional, and I am in specifically Acts 16 today. So in Acts 16, we see that Paul and Silas are in jail. They are singing in jail. Then there is an earthquake. And lastly, the group of verses that I'm looking at today, we see a Philippian jailer be converted. So I wanted to read this grouping of verses for you. This is Acts 16, 25 through 32. It says, "About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of the prison were shaken. And immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bonds were unfastened. When the jailer woke and saw that the prison doors were open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself, supposing that the prisoners had escaped. But Paul cried with a loud voice, 'Do not harm yourself, for we are all here.' And the jailer called for lights and rushed in, and trembling with fear, he fell down before Paul and Silas. Then he brought them out and said, 'Sirs, what must I do to be saved?' And they said, 'Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and you will be saved, you and your household.' And they spoke the word of the Lord to him and to all who were in his house." I love these verses because it shows the simplicity of salvation. And then when Paul and Silas say, "You and your household will be saved as well," that's because they actually went to the jailer's household and taught them about the Lord there. It's not because the jailer was saved that his whole household was saved. It's because they went and taught them, and then they believed as well. You can see those interactions in verses 32 through 34. But now I want to dress up some of these ephemera pieces. I have these mica tiles. So this is true mica, and you can peel it back in different layers. And so I've peeled it back to this one singular layer, and I'm using a specimen die from Holtz that I've already cut out. And I'm just going to make a little slide with some mica tile and a clear sticker. So I don't use these clear stickers often, but I'm actually going to use them twice in today's page. These clear stickers work great for mica tiles. They kind of melt on to that mica, and so it just looks like a clear thing. I don't know, it's really cool. So I've done that. I've also distressed the edges of that one ephemera piece, and I'm also adding a little Dymo label maker. I'm putting believe on there because that is the word that sticks out most to me in these verses. So I'm going to make a little cluster in this bottom left hand corner. If you've never played with mica tiles before, they are so much fun, especially with alcohol inks. And you can pick them up on Amazon, or some craft stores will have them. Sometimes they're a little tricky to find, but Amazon's kind of my go-to for those because it's easy, it's fast, and it'll get here in time. But anyways, now I'm just kind of staging some of these different pieces. I'm deciding what little clusters I want up in that upper left-hand corner. I did these in a previous video, but I just put all those clear stickers on some white paper, like all the little ticket and snippets and everything. And so I made extra ephemera with those. So as you saw there, I placed that flower down. I just held it with one hand so I could see where I wanted it placed. And now we're going to start gluing these all down. But I want a little bit more extra. So I had these actually in my stash. Just sometimes I use part of something and then I just have a little tray of all my half-used stuff. So this little spiral binding right there was half used, so it actually fits perfectly in here. And then I also have this acetate piece that I must have dropped on the floor or something and put in my little tray, and so I'll use that in my cluster as well because it works perfectly with this kind of orangey red color. Now, when it comes to making clusters, there's a couple rules that will help you make something that looks the best that it can be. So odd numbers are your friend, and also diagonals and triangles. So today I'm kind of making a diagonal down from upper left of my cluster to bottom right. And so I want to make that color travel down. So I've also used that little yellow snippet in the bottom right hand corner. That's going to make your eye kind of drag tag down to that color because there's a little break in there. And then with this circle, I wanted to add something extra. So I'm just adding a little bit of clear embossing powder. That's all it is. Now you can't see it really on video, but in person it adds such a fun finish to this. You could also use some colored embossing powders, which I will show you in a second, but just adding a different shine or sheen to a page just makes it more interesting and eye-catching. So when it comes to this little mini tag, I already cut this out previously. When I saw the theme of this kit had this antique vintage vibe, I actually went through all my die sets from Holtz and picked some out that I wanted to cut beforehand, and that way I could embellish them easier. And so that's what I'm doing here. I have this little word says filed on it, and my trick with this was just using tweezers and a little dot of glue, and that way there wasn't too much glue. I'm adding my date before I forget and move on, but I wanted that glue to dry before I used some VersaMark on it, and now I'm using the antique linen embossing glaze from Holtz. So this is going to give an overall color on it that is yet still clear. So it's kind of like clear embossing powder, but with a tint to it. And so that's what I've done with this one, and I will put it on a bowl pin. But when I look through my stash, I remembered that I had these other tags in here. These were some tags that I bulk created at a retreat last spring, and so I will tag down below the video explaining how I did it, but basically it is clear embossing powder and some gray embossing powder after you stamp and ink around the edges. But anyways, now I am just adding this cluster all together, finishing this up and just sliding that under the slide right there. Also, I thought it was really cute because that one tag says a telephone number and the hymn is Jesus is Calling. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite ephemera glow up is. If that is just distressing the edges with some ink and some rough scissors, or if that is embossing powder or embossing glaze, or if you really like that Mica Tiles slide. So let me know down below. I will leave all my links down below as well. Those are affiliate links, so thank you so much for using those. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you check me out over on Instagram at Wonderfully Made Handcrafting and also over on Facebook. I hope you have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.